I think we get to a point, you and I are similar age and very ironic, but we have a very similar path in terms of, I wasn't actually, part of a religious cult, but I came from a challenging home environment and what led me to entrepreneurship and sort of the direction we have. And I think that kind of the desire to give voice to the stories of people that are out there doing good work, right? I mean, you're doing that for the brands you choose to work with and want to work with, not because the
Mhm.
paycheck is there, but because it really feels something up in here, right? You have a
Right.
heart-centered mission and approach, and I feel like there's that age and wisdom. And then to your point, like at some point you just got to say, I just don't want to fucking do that anymore. I mean, I
Right.
don't want to just sell out for the sake of a paycheck or sell out for the sake of a client just because I can doesn't mean I should.
Hmm.
And that's true for a lot of things in my life, right? Whether it be the approach that, I look at, how to be a good steward of the work I do, or just be a good citizen, show up and be, an advocate for the people that maybe won't speak up or won't say, what they need to say, or don't have the courage necessarily to do it, or just be that person in the room that says, yeah, but hold on, like we need to think about this a little bit differently, or we need to approach this from maybe a little bit different perspective and not the same direction all the rest of the ducks are flowing, right? And I
Yeah.
think that there's a lot of freedom in doing that and being able to be in that position, and it's empowering when you can do it and you can see the results of it. But at the end of the day, I think you get to that point where you're like, okay, everything I was doing prior was, just not quite in alignment. And then when you feel like you're starting to click, the flywheel catches and things just start to happen. All of a sudden, the people that are supposed to show up in your life show up. I think that's
Yeah.
part of why Ann thought you and I should connect, and we needed to become friends. And you start being far more open than just the little myopic view you've kind of like,
Yeah.
built your world around.
Right. And it's also more like, it's like I don't like the word ally. You don't like that phrase. It's like a cheerleader. Like you go, you
Yeah.
oppressed people.
Yeah.
Like the things that we're dealing with today are going to continue until enough people that look like you and me decide it's enough is enough.
Yeah.
Because the
Yeah.
institutions that we supported and generally put in place, the whether it's the corporate big companies or the Supreme Court, who decided yesterday, went back to like the Dred Scott era almost of the Supreme Court, and said it was okay to profile people racially or because of their accent, which is
Yeah.
so gross. Like
Yeah.
it's so ugly and gross. And so you do see some level of this with like the number of companies that basically continued their diversity, equity, and inclusion programs despite Trump's, donkey braying about it, and including several companies, including Marriott, that lost significant amounts of revenue because
Yep.
the federal government canceled their contract with them because they wouldn't eliminate their diversity, equity, inclusion program. And by the way, side note, I say it entirely. I don't say DEI because a friend of mine, a guest on our podcast that Virginia and I have, Janet Stovall, she said it's very important, especially if you're white, to say all three words because basically, if somebody's against it, it's easy to say I'm against DEI. It's a
Yeah.
little bit more uncomfortable, hopefully, to say you're against diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah.
And I get this a lot on LinkedIn and stuff. They're like, well, you shouldn't talk about politics, or why do you keep bringing race or gender into it? And it's like, that's reality, man.
Yeah. This is
It's
the
like that.
world we're living
This
in.
is the
Yeah.
world we're living in, and it is fascism or any form of it that you want to call it, authoritarianism, whatever. It only continues when people with privilege just don't do anything.
That's right.
Like if people with privilege say something, it's unsustainable because it's certainly not like the ideas of MAGA would die in the open market. That's why they try to control vote, and that's why they try to control like bodies of power. Because as a product, you know, if you had a product that only 32% of the market bought, you'd get fired.
Yeah.
You'd be bankrupt like a casino.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
The thing I really love about the work that you do as a, and I want to talk very, quickly about, the company that you're working with, massive change, but I loved your approach about helping soul-led entrepreneurs build sacred brands.
Yeah.
It really harkens back to, sort of the days of Seth Godin, when he was talking
Mhm.
about the sacred cows and living true to your principles and
Mhm.
understanding, that there was a certain responsibility you have as a brand, as a leadership
Mhm.
team, as an executive CEO, that isn't about putting all the money back in your paycheck. It's about creating good with what you do. And not every business operation or opportunity is going to be like that. I'm, certainly not Pollyanna, but at the end of the day, when you actually have a soul attached to whatever it is, you could be trying to write a book, you could be getting a
Mhm.
podcast out there, you could be trying to get a screenplay, you know, adapted for a movie. When people can identify with that it factor, that real unique application that, they can, you don't, it's kind of like pornography, right? You know it when you see it. It's like
Yeah.
you just get it. And that's a company you want to do business with. It's what, Southwest did really, really well for a lot of years, maybe not so much anymore, but,
Mhm.
it was, people were not only passionate about the product that they offered, but they felt empowered to be a part of the experience, and much like what people see today probably with Apple or some of the the products that are out there that people know are trying to drive innovation and change. And what I like about what you do is taking an entrepreneur from, just like that example you gave earlier, which is that that entrepreneur that finally was like, oh my God, it's kind of like that Sally Field Oscar moment. You see me, you like me, you get
Right.
what I'm here for.
Right.
And all these years, been trying to pitch that out into the marketplace. And it finally takes someone like Justin to come in and go, let me synthesize that down to a point where I can help you communicate that freely. Doesn't matter what your investors say or what your board says. When you put that out there, you're going to have good things that happen because of it.
Right. Yeah, and this is why I don't like the word brand for what it means,
Yeah.
generally speaking, but I've decided over the years, like, I'd rather redefine what it means to be a brand or what it means to do branding than
Yeah.
come up with a new term and then try to educate the marketplace on that. And again, brand is energy. It's the
Yep.
energy you put out into the world. And the difference now is because of proliferation of content and sort of the fishbowl effect of social
Yep.
media and everything is branding is no longer, unless you're selling to dumb people, branding is no longer an outside in thing. It's an inside out thing. And this there's no, it's the integration of, say, let's say it's a bigger company, or let's say 100 people. It's just the integration of the values and the ethics of the leadership team as experienced in the culture that is then produced in the customer experience, and then that becomes the brand, and marketing supports that.
Yep.
So this is why I teach this to every client, is the goal here is word of mouth.
Yeah.
And a dear friend of mine in Austin, Andy Cernovitz, my favorite marketing line of all time is, advertising is the price you pay for being boring. And and
I love that.
what's interesting is that he wrote that in a book about word of mouth years ago, and that's still true. But now we got the freaking algorithm,
Yeah.
and that's why I created this new cohort that I'm launching called F the Formula, because it's not just that the algorithm elevates mediocrity; it's that it reduces excellence.
Yep.
And there'll be I wrote this the other day, or did as an audio clip, and our marketing team is going to be putting it out soon. But the best marketing advice you'll ever receive will come from inside of you, but not if you don't know how to listen to your intuition.
Yeah.
Your intuition is where sincerity comes from, where authenticity comes from, where the truth comes from. And the algorithm teaches you to water that down and or ignore it or something, and you end up being like, it's like being White Claw instead of bourbon, or being Luke Bryan instead of Chris Stapleton.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, it's just like, it's a different thing. And I'm not saying that everybody should have the formula. Like, if you're a direct to consumer and you got an online, like Howler Brothers in Austin, the formula, the algorithm made them rich in many ways,
Sure.
because they were, or Poncho, another great Texas brand, or Tacova, another great Texas brand. All brands that I love. I think I'm wearing a Poncho shirt right now.
I love it.
Yeah, so I'm not saying F the formula if you're like a direct to consumer type brand. There's a way to do it ethically, which I think they
Yeah.
do. They're not like, it's not a shitty product that they clickbait people into buying.
Yeah.
But if you're a solo entrepreneur, you're a solo professional, a coach, consultant, therapist, body worker, whatever, or creative, following the formula will kill your soul. It's that simple. It will kill your soul. And what I've seen is this: is I've seen a lot of solo brands where they're the product. The person is the product. Even if they got a staff, they're still the product.
Yeah.
There's two things that happen. One is that they keep trying stuff and it doesn't work, and they just think like, oh, I'm done. I'm not want
Yeah.
to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Or they resort to sort of, as I often say, they'll say, well, I'm the best kept secret. And my answer that always is, well, if you're the best kept secret, it just means you suck at marketing. It's quit treating that like a badge of honor. And here's what it comes back to what you said about the almost like a moral obligation here.
Yeah.
Is that if your business is your calling, you have a moral obligation to be findable, memorable, and repeatable.
Yeah.
Those aren't things that are nice to have. It's like,
They're
if it's
must-haves.
indeed,
Yeah.
they're must-haves, and it's not even really about your business model. It's that if it's your calling, it's not meant to be a secret. As
Yeah.
Jesus said, "Don't hide your light under a bushel." It's the
Yeah.
same thing. It's
Exactly.
like Oprah said, "Don't add more darkness to the world," is one of her mantras, and it's the same thing with your brand. If you're a good human being that gives a shit about people and has some level of social consciousness, you have a kind heart, your brand is the only way people are going to know that unless they have direct contact with you. And the
Yeah.
likelihood of that is so small right now. And final rant about this is we got to counter all the bullshit. All of the bullshit. Like I'm going to post this right before we got on here. I got an email. It's just spam. It's like a pitch.
Yeah.
And it is so gross the way this guy did it. So I'm going to post it. I'm going to see. You want to know why I say F the formula? People like this.
Here you go.
The way
Yeah.
he's pitching me for like lead gen services, and so anyway, that's where I took with F the formula. I took basically everything I've taught and learned over the last 23 years and put it into 5 modules, and I still do it. I have clients. This is the first time I've ever done it as a cohort because I've kind of had this story in my head that it's too intimate to do it with a group. But honestly, thanks to Virginia, who has got these models of facilitation around group coaching, where she's doing group coaching with like 100 women activists on how to manage their mindset, in the middle of all the trauma of being, in El Salvador dealing with that guy, or whatever. I was like, oh, okay. So I think I can do this. And so it's somewhat of an experiment to see if I can teach people these 5 principles in a group setting, which is why I've capped the first cohort at 15 people, because we do a lot of stuff in groups of 3s to peer coaching, which I learned from Virginia. So anyway, it's an experiment. It's kind of a thing I feel like I need to put out there, and it's not for everybody. That's why I would make it very specifically that if you're the product, it's for you. If you're the head of marketing for a bank or something, it's probably not. Not that I would work with you, but it's just a different experience when you're the product.
Well, and it's, I think one of the things that you said, and we're going to take this portion and we're going to carve this out just so we'll edit this piece and promote this through the pond, because I think all of our solopreneurs that are really, really committed to not doing it like everybody else. They don't want a marketing book. They don't want to follow, the formula that everybody says, because they've been trying and it doesn't work, right? There's definitely a commitment to do it different. And when I think about what you're saying in terms of how you put that individual entrepreneur or that brand through sort of that lens, it really is striking to me, because it really kind of falls in line with kind of why I think people suck at connecting or building their network the right way, because everybody puts on these airs because they're trying to do it the way they think that they need to do it in order to be accepted. Mm-hmm. When you are out doing things from a heart-centered approach, and you are truly, truly committed to your mission, what that is, that passion, it doesn't even matter, what everybody else says. You're not trying to, meet the algorithm. You're not trying to hit the vanity metrics. You're actually out trying to shake some shit up and make it happen. And people can see it and they can feel it. And that's what brings them to that brand, because they know the chief, as I tell a lot of my coaching clients that are entrepreneurs, like, you absolutely are the number one salesperson. You're the number one cheerleader. You are the face of the business. And if that's not what you want to be, you will pick the wrong industry to be in.
Right.
Not to say, hey, maybe, hand that off, right? You built a great model, you do it. But if you can't be that person for the organization, and you can't stand up in front of your team and say, this is why we're here, this is why we do it, and you can't put heart first, you're going to generally not get the same level of success that you should if you put that forward. And it's just very much like the acceptance piece, right? When you show up as an authentic individual, whether you're building a business, showing up at that networking event, or just, venturing out into your new neighborhood in Mexico, and people see you for who you are because you're not trying to put on something that you're not, people gravitate to that. And when I think about it as it relates to the ripple, it's like casting that stone. You do it correctly, you do it with good intention, those ripples will come back to you in ways that you can't possibly imagine.
Right. And the key to it is like, you got to have some clarity about who you are. You need to know who you are. This is why
and that's an important piece, right? I don't want to gloss over that, because at the end of the day, a lot of business owners, they've never even stopped to contemplate that, and they need to.
They need to, because it's the way the mind works, the ego works, is it will produce a hologram, and the hologram probably will do okay with a formula because it's not really you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just won't be able to sleep at night. It'll feel weird. It'll feel icky,
Yeah.
And so there's the clarity, though. It's like there's moral clarity and identity clarity. And then there's like consistency. Marketing and branding is like an Olympic pool. There's no kiddie pool in. You get in and you do it. And
or you drown.
Or you drown. Yeah. And so the other part of that too is like, it's how you market also affects your brand, not necessarily what you market. So if you're carpet bombing people's inboxes, or you're using the classic cheesy, creepy, or boring, those are generally the three ways that people mess it up. In that case, you would be better off not doing any marketing, because it hurts your brand the way that you're doing it. The other part of that too is, if you don't have clarity about who you are, you don't really know what to say. And so what will happen is you hire somebody to do your marketing for you. They'll tell you what your voice is. I don't do that. I'm going to help you find your voice, but this is why, one of the greatest business compliments I ever got was when a client and friend of mine referred to me as her Rick Rubin. That's what he does.
What a compliment. That's
such a great compliment. Right. Huge compliment. And it was this sense of like, I'm not going to help you be a better singer. I'm going to help you find your voice, but I'm not going to give you a voice.
Yeah.
I'm not,
that's your job. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not like a record producer I don't do auto tuning, I don't, like you can't suck at what you do. I can't fix that. I can't turn a shit sandwich into an ice cream cone, so anyway. And so this thing, and that's why so much of the work of branding is internal first, because, and I say this to every client, is that you are the chief spiritual officer of your brand, which means there's two things I can't give you. I can't give you courage. I can't give you vision or clarity. I can't give you those things. And one of the things that I just have found is like, I can't have a bigger vision for your brand than you.
Yeah.
Like, I don't expect you to, like, they'll say like, I have imposter syndrome. It's like, well, that's because you're being an imposter. That's why. It's your soul going, stop doing that.
Yeah.
And it's a similar thing though. It's like, you got to suspend what you're calling humility, which is really just insecurity, because you don't know, you haven't embraced like that you're fucking amazing at what you do. Yeah. And that insecurity is just part of the gig. It's just part of the deal. And it just, to use it as a reason to not market yourself is pretty lame, honestly.
I agree. And we all have it, right? But you can't use it as a crutch. It will eventually fall off and you will crash.
Yes,
you will get discovered for the fake that you are, which is, it blows me away that so many people do it.
Well, and it's also this too. You see sort of another version of this, which is, I'm so amazing. Why do I have to market? And the thing is it's a harsh reality. This is true, especially for professional, solo professionals.
Yeah.
What you do is a commodity. Who you are isn't, but if you don't know who you are, or your identity is attached so much to what you do, you're really no different than anybody else, and you can see this. I do a game in F the Formula. We'll play this game as a group, but I do this with my clients too, called Bullshit Bingo. And everybody writes down, especially I do this with a team, like a company, like a leadership team. They all write down on a bingo card the buzzwords from their industry. Like, so it's like, let's say it's like a wealth management or financial planning. So you just get all the things, like peace of mind and, protect your future, like all that stuff. Put it on a bingo card. Trust, yeah, trust. What's the term? Trusted advisor. That type of thing. Yes. Put all that on a bingo card, and then we go through their website, and we say if we can play bullshit bingo.
Oh, it's awesome.
Because everybody wants to look at the competitor and be like, oh, look what they're doing. It's like, yeah, let's look at yours first, man.
Yeah.
Like, and so
turn that mirror around.
Yeah, right. And the point here is like, if you sound like everybody else, it means you're not being yourself. Because if you hear Lady Gaga's voice, or Willie Nelson, or Frank Sinatra, you know exactly who that is. I can't tell the difference between certain pop stars or certain country pop singers. Like, I don't know that it's hard to tell the difference between Tucker Wetmore and Morgan Wallen. Like, they sound a lot alike because the machine picks people that sound alike.
Yeah.
You talk about being an original. There's no way you would ever put something out to the world that was sort of a cheap knockoff of what somebody else was saying.
Yep.
And that's the fun part, though. It's like when people get that confidence, that moment of like, oh, and they're excited to go to a networking event, and they don't get all like sweaty when somebody asks them, what do you do? There's an excitement there. That's fun. I love that stuff.
Oh my God. We could talk for hours about this. I love this. We have to touch on your company though. So tell us about Massive and what you guys are doing with that. I mean, obviously, the program that you're doing, you're going to do a couple of cohorts, right? Because I'm fired up. I want to do the next one. I think I told you I've challenged schedule wise because of my dad right now, but I definitely want to participate because I just think spending time in your world and understanding this process even more, I would learn so very much. But I mean, are you going to do multiple cohorts for the program? And then is this tied to the company, or is this kind of an entree to give clients a kind of a preview of coming attractions if they work with you at Massive, or give us a little sense of that?
So Massive is Virginia and I, but it's not a product company.
Okay.
It's a really a thought leadership brand. And we're rolling out some of our own new messaging very soon. So you're one of the first people to hear this, but the new messaging is the art of language and the science of movements. Ooh. So it takes everything I know about the art of messaging and in language and everything we've been talking about, all the stuff that's in my what's called ethos, which is a model I created for how to brand yourself in an ethical way, and then in F the Formula, which is a coaching program, or just the straight up like fractional CMO work that I do. Yep. It's all the same philosophies and ideas. It's just delivered differently. That's me. Virginia's side of the thing is working more with clients on how to actually create a movement. Her background is an activist, and she was the executive producer of the most popular TV show in Central America of all time, as far as ratings and reviews and everything. And it was a social justice type show. It was like a social soap almost, like, and the common denominator that we end up working together on projects is what we call system shakers. And this is very simple. This is a brand, could be an individual, but usually it's a group of people in a company or an organization that want to shake shit up. And it goes back to Virginia's genius in like complexity science. She's a complexity scientist. That's her PhD is in that field. And understanding how it all works to create change. You need to shock the system in certain ways, and you need leaders that think systemically and not just like linearly. And so I'll give you an example. I can't, I don't want to say their name yet because we're redoing their website, but it's the first ever platform for women musicians over 40. It's a
Ooh,
for-profit business. So it's a promotional platform, so a promo company, it's a record label, and it's a brand partnership company. So this company represents women musicians over 40 to brands saying, sponsor this musician who's going on tour because your audience, you're the people that buy your product are going to love her.
yep.
That shakes the system because in the music business, women over 40, unless you're already famous, are sort of relegated to like side hobby.
Yeah.
It's extremely rare for a woman over 40 to get any traction in the market side, in the business
Yep.
side of music. So the founders of this company, all musicians, and some of them quite successful musicians, are like, they reach a point where I think every socially conscious brand reaches, which is fuck this shit. We're going to do something different.
Yep.
And that's and so Virginia and I are working on that project together. And that's sort of like the perfect example of like a joint project. But generally speaking, she's doing more stuff with nonprofits related to how to use systems thinking to create better movements and more sustainable change in the world. And I'm working more with individual and corporate brands, and sometimes we get to work together.
Oh, I love that. And it actually sets my mind afoot to make some other introductions for you. Really good friend. She's become a good friend. She was a podcast guest. Lorenzo Munoz was a former Amazon MGM executive. She was, high up with the Oscars, the Academy Awards. She's doing something not in the music space, but sort of similar. And I could just see you guys really jamming and really
Yeah,
finding
love
some
it.
avenue. I met her because of Carol Costello, who used to be the midday anchor for CNN. She and I are great, have become great friends. She was on the podcast, gosh, probably coming up on 2 years ago. But she and Lorenza are really good friends and have done some projects together. But yeah, my head's spinning with ways to maybe connect you and just tie
Mhm.
into some of the stuff you're doing, so that there's going to be some real ripples coming out of this thing. I'm going
Yeah.
to tell you right now. But
Well, and
uh,
I want to praise you on something, Steve, just so because we're recording. Is when Ann first told me about you, I'm like, oh, this is a cool guy. I looked into it, and you've got this ripple, central ripple. Use this metaphor, but what I love, and this has been consistently true since we connected, is you don't abuse the metaphor. You just use it as an example or as a metaphor for what it is, and let people experience it. And so I've introduced you to some people in my circle that I've met that I think would be, just intuitively you vibe with them. And what I love is you have created something that cannot be explained. It can only be experienced. And
oh, thank you.
that is the holy grail of branding for around like stuff that's more thought based or soul based. It's like if you can explain it, it's not that original. And the tendency I see over and over, like I knew it, I had a guy, he wasn't a client, but I knew him, and he had this thing about ice cream, and he just abused the shit out of that metaphor to the point that it became a cliche. And it's you've created something extremely special and didn't overcook it.
Oh,
You
I
didn't
mean,
overcook it.
I'm so honored by that. Thank you so much for that. I mean, that wow. I mean, I just can't express how much I appreciate that. That's I don't know that I was in. I've tried to be intentional about that. I don't know that I've always hit the mark, but I love to be recognized by somebody of your stature for that. It just means the world to me. So thank you.
Yeah,
And I
well,
and
well
I feel
done.
the same about you. I mean, you can see your eyes lit up, what you're doing, how you're doing it. I mean, as I said, I want to support great people doing great work out there, and I'm so grateful that Ann connected us. And for those of you that may not remember, but Ann Fry was on my show maybe about 2 years ago. She's starting into the early stages of Alzheimer's. She has been a supporter of mine since the early days when I first brought my book out, and I was first starting to talk about Ripple. but I actually was invited to speak to a group of coaches, and it was a very challenging, difficult room. I'm introverted, you're extroverted. That's probably why we match really, really well. But I was afraid of my own shadow, but I knew I had a message there that I wanted to share, but I didn't exactly know how to do it. And I had all of these different people and experts and people telling me how I needed to market myself and how I needed to gear my message. And she recognized something in me in that night, in that I was going into this event, and I had a good friend that said, "Oh my God, why in the world would you do this event? They are going to eat you alive. You're introverted. They're very type A-ish. They're very predatory in a lot of ways, And I walked in and I basically just spoke from the heart, and I said,
Mhm.
this may not be as polished as you're accustomed to. I may not necessarily have the pedigree or the levels of degree that many of you do, but I bet you I know one thing that most of you are struggling with is you struggle to really be able to connect with the world in an authentic way. And most
Mhm.
people lead by their pedigree or their resume or how great my LinkedIn is or who I'm connected to. And I don't care about any of that. What I want to do is I want to figure out what's inside of here so that you can help figure out how to get it out there and be more authentic in your approach to not only attracting more clients and opportunities, but really connecting with those clients at a level that not only keeps them coming back, but makes them friends for life. She came up to me. She was direct. She's a very serious individual,
Right.
and she's 5 foot nothing, and she is a powerhouse from the moment you see her. And she said, "I just want to tell you something. You spoke to me, and that doesn't happen very often." she,
Mhm.
she said, "You came in here, and this could be a very intimidating room, and you brought the power because you didn't put on airs." And she said, I want to know more." And we became friends from that point forward. She moved to New
Mhm.
York, came back, and just
Oh,
amazing, amazing lady. So
yeah.
I've got to give her true props for helping us
Yeah.
connect and make this happen for sure.
Yeah.
She's
That's
going to
good.
be over the moon to know that we did this and can't wait to
Yes.
listen to it. And we'll probably
Yes.
listen to it on repeat. But it's so great.
Yeah.
Justin, I could talk to you for hours, and someday we're gonna have to do that anyway. But
Right.
I really want to be respectful of your time, and I always try to wrap these interviews up with a few Ripple connection questions if you'd be game for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you okay on time?
I got 10 more minutes.
Okay, let's go. We'll go fast. What did the 7-year-old Justin want to be when he grew up if it wasn't a cowboy?
I wanted to be a aeronautical engineer, but I wanted to own the company. So,
Ooh,
so when I was 7, I created a logo, FAC, Foster Aircraft Corporation, and a logo,
that's
and that's
awesome.
that's that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted to be.
If you weren't doing what you're doing right now, what would you be doing?
I would probably be a therapist,
You'd be damn good at it.
and run for office back in the United States. Yeah.
Um, what would you tell anybody who was just curious about picking up their life and moving to, parts unknown like you did in Mexico? What advice would you give them?
Well, I don't give advice, so
Okay.
uh, I would remind them that is to just examine your intention, like what you're why you're there, and stay curious and stay humble, and never stop being curious and humble. I think that's probably true if you stayed right where you're at, but especially if you're an American, especially if you're white, just be curious and be humble.
I love that. I love that. You called yourself a country music purist. Who
Hmm.
is who is it for you in country music that really, it's like if you had to listen to that one artist for the rest of your life and that was all you could listen to, who would it be?
Well, that evolves or changes, at times. But right now, I would say Parker McCollum,
Ooh, that's a
from
good one.
Conroe, Texas. He's part of the movement, kind of this new wave of Texas artists that it was kind of started with Cody Johnson
Yeah.
and now Parker and Randy Rogers is in that bucket, and Wade
Yep.
Bowen, Co Wetzel's in there, and they're part of this like generation of country artists that they did make it big time. He's signed to a major label, but it's different. Is that he negotiated like Waylon did back in the day and Willie Nelson did back in the day, that basically the record label only has distribution rights. They don't own the music.
Yeah.
And there's a great interview of him on the street in New York talking to this guy. And it's probably kind of a setup, the way he did it, but they're just talking music and playing songs. And he's like nailing like a random Celine Dion song or something, and seems like a really good dude. And he's a hell of a songwriter. His latest album is a risk because he had kind of a sound. He was a gold chain cowboy, and he's like what they call sad boy country. And he crafted an album of like challenging songwriting. He covered some stuff. He covered an old Charlie Rich song called "Good Time Charlie's Got the Blues."
Yep.
And he's a kid. He's like 32 years old or something.
Yeah.
And Sierra Farrell will be another one. She's an outlaw woman country singer, and she's just kind of got this kind of like Margot Price a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
A little just this kind of FU to the world and does her thing. And I'll throw in one more, Charlie Crockett, another Texas singer from the Valley. So
I love that. Those are all great ones. Fantastic. The book that changed your life.
Not one book, probably, but I'll go with my intuition on one that was like a forever moment. Is a rather obscure book called Writing Down Your Soul. And it's basically a book about how to use journaling to listen to your soul. And I use something from that every day in the way that I just sort of, like I said, the greatest advisory is already inside of you. It's your own intuition.
I love that. And you are a poet. How'd you get into poetry?
I've always written poems, like way back, and even when I was a little kid. I just never shared them. I've always been a writer, just never shared it. And the first time I ever publicly shared a poem, I spoke at Creative Mornings, the first Creative Mornings event in Austin in 2020, in January of 2020. And I wrote a poem that I wrote, and I talked about the journey of what it meant to be a poet from, the culture that I came out of, which it used to be, the West was a great source of poetry. And then it got, rural toxicity kicked in or something.
Yeah.
And you don't see that. You get Kid Rock now.
Last three questions are pretty simple, but if you had to give everyone listening one piece of advice, what would it be?
If you believe in some higher power or some source, just try to imagine how they see you, how this being sees you, or this source, for like 10 seconds. Just suspend all the shit around insecurity just for a little bit. Yeah, that would be it.
That's a good one. When you hear the words, the ripple effect, what does that conjure up for you when you hear those words?
Like legacy, but legacy done through authentic actions.
That's a good answer. What's one ripple that I could look to create for you?
Introduce me to more Steve Harpers.
I don't know. My wife probably would be like, God, I hope there's not any more, but I'll look for them. But I appreciate that.
And I have one question for you.
Sure.
Back, is how often are you told that you sound or look like John Harbaugh?
Never. I used to be.
Really?
I used to look like Ricky Schroeder, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not sure that's a good thing these days.
I don't know. Yeah, no, he's Rick Schroeder or something. He was amazing in Lonesome Dove, by the way.
So, I'm
watching you. I listened, watching you. I was like, man, this is like talking to John Harbaugh.
Oh my God. Yeah, I have better pants. I'll just say that.
Yeah, that's Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh is the one that.
Oh yeah. You're right. Yeah. Well, yeah, John's still kind of like a straight lace kind of guy.
Right. Yeah. You got a bigger sense of humor.
That's hilarious. I appreciate that. So last thing I lied. There was one question. What's the best way for people to follow you? I know you got the Substack. I know you've got change.co.
Massivechange.co. Yeah.
Massivechange.co. How and you got social, so what's the best way for people to get in touch?
If you go you can jump off from every place to go to fosterthinking.com. That will take you to Substack, but everything from there will take you to wherever else you want to go. I'm very findable. It's easy to book a call with me too. I make it accessible. If you go to my LinkedIn, you can book a call with me. Just don't waste my time. That's my
Yeah.
only request. So
I love it. I love it. Justin, I am immensely, immensely grateful that you took the time to make this happen. Thanks for the flexibility with all the schedule changes that I had and the challenges.
yeah,
I'm so grateful for this. I can't wait for our next conversation. And I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my
yeah,
heart. And a big shout out to Ann Fry for connecting us for sure.
yes, yeah. Thank
All
you,
right.
Ann.
Well,
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate you
yeah,
very much.
yeah.
This is,
Thank you. I appreciate it. Ripple on. And guys, we'll be back with another episode very soon. But Justin, have a great rest of your day and ripple on.
thank you.